You know, normally I wouldn't complain about such a thing. Let me get this. But considering I spent the last 2 weeks working on this while not at work and dealing with kids and so on and so forth, I think I feel like sharing. So, there's one main reason why Jagex is failing on its fucking face when it comes to RuneScape 3, right? When I look at these videos on how to do bosses and stuff like that, I'm constantly reminded that in order to beat some of the in-game bosses without struggling too hard, after you max your count, you have to go through like 1,000 hours of hoops and hurdles in order to get there, right? So, let me give you some examples of this shit right now. In a lot of videos, you'll see, oh, you need the Shadow Pontificus, or whatever the fuck it's called, ring, right? So this ring right here, right? Enriched Pontificus Shadow Ring. You know what that ring requires you to do? The entire quest line to extinction, right? You're talking 20, 30 hours, okay? And that's just for that. That's already if you have the archaeology levels to do some of the things you need to do, and so on, and the other levels to do what you need to do relatively easily. Now, I'm not going to stop there, right? In a lot of these other guides and for bossing and stuff like that, you'll see, oh well, it just requires a Zuck cape, right? This cape right here, right? In order to do this. Most people are not going to be able to kill that boss. And second of all, the other thing that it doesn't tell you is you need to kill that boss from start to finish. You need to go into that instance and kill the boss from start to finish. You can't just go in and continue where you left off, which, if you look on the website and you're just playing, it doesn't tell you in the game that you need to kill it from start to finish. I spent like 15 deaths last night trying to get the fucking igneous stone to complete this cape, right? And then once I died 15 times, I started off and I went through the whole thing, and I was like, well, I'll go back and give it another shot, thinking I had to do the whole thing over again. So I do it, right? Took me like 15 times, finally killed the boss, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'm glad I got the hang of it, I'm glad that's over with. Nope. You have to go from start to finish. If you die at any point in there, you cannot start where you left off. You have to restart, but the game doesn't tell you that. Fine, so be it. So then I'm like, well, I have a set of tier 80 necromancy armor with some stuff on it for like doing different bosses and shit, right? I was watching this one video about how, oh, this is how you low effort Raziel, right? So I spend all the money on trying to get like these things and stuff like that to try to break down shit for invention to get these, you know, things, not including these things here, which were fucking expensive. You're talking 300 million for like some of this shit that I had to spend on breaking stuff down that most players are not going to have to begin with. What I'm trying to say, Jagex, is your game is so fucking convoluted with just these extra steps that you have to take in order to beat these bosses and do some of the things that your, you know, better player base can do normally. Most of us nowadays don't have 1,000 hours to spend after we maxed our accounts to get up archaeology or all this other shit, to do all these side quests and all these other quests. The Extinction quest chain took me like, I don't know, 20 or 30 hours to do everything from start to finish. Granted, I hadn't played in like 10 years, right, since old school RuneScape was a thing, okay? But like, why is it gonna take, your quests are now over an hour long. Like literally, your quests are an hour long nowadays. Your quests were never that good to begin with. They're so not that good that I went on YouTube. I started doing some of the quests, and I was like, damn, these quests are a pain in the ass to do. finally I was like, I'm done doing this. I'm just going to look up a guide, right? It wasn't fun for me or enjoyable. I didn't give a shit about the lore. But like, I go on YouTube and I just look up these videos, and I can't remember the guy's name. He does it step for step and walks with you. Anyways, it took me dozens of hours to get all that quest chain done, right? And then finally I'm like, well, I also want to get this upgraded to tier 90, okay? Well, in order to do that, I had to go get this from Telos, which was a piece of cake, this from Araxor, which was a pretty decent piece of cake, and then finally I had to go to the Shadow Reef, right? I had to go to the Shadow Reef to get the thing from the Ambassador, right? I fucking kept dying on the second boss. So I had 2 death touch darts, right? I'm like, okay, well, surely the death touch darts work, right? And they do. They work on the last 2. They work on all the bosses in the Shadow Reef. They work on the second to last boss, which I death touch dart after he killed me, and they work on the Ambassador, right? So I death touch dart the Ambassador right at the beginning of the fight. Nothing drops. So I'm like, okay, well, I checked the treasure chest. Okay, well, guess what? This shit right here, this Ulthan Necroplasm, they literally, it's not dropped. So like I said, I Google it, and sure enough, it says here, the Necroplasm can be obtained with a group of 2 or 3 players. Other players needing the Necroplasm need to use Necromancy. Any combat style may be used by the other players, adding to the skill. I'm like, okay, well, I did use Necromancy, but I just darted it, so what the fuck? Having player A use a Death Touch dart after player B and C hit it with Necromancy does work. Blah, blah, blah. Player A does not get the drop. I'm like, what the fuck? The interaction might be an oversight. Oh, you fucking think it might be an oversight. Alternatively, dealing at least 500k Necromancy damage in solo mode and finishing off the Ambassador with a Death Touch dart will also yield the drop. So pretty much, I'm fucked. I needed to kill that goddamn boss. I needed to do 500k damage and then death touch dart the boss. Which, why would I know that? I just figured it doesn't say, hey, do 500k. It doesn't say here, do 500k damage to the Ambassador. It just says, kill the Ambassador and get this shit, right? Well, guess what? I killed it and it didn't drop. So now I gotta do the whole Shadow Reef again and struggle through the... You know what? I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it. I'll get my claim... I'll give them 100 mil to just take me through the fucking thing. Because you guys can't indicate on the fucking thing, like, hey, if you just death touch dart this, you're not gonna get it. It doesn't say here that I need to use Necromancy. It just says kill it. I'm just annoyed. I'm annoyed. You know, I'm annoyed that I spent all this extra time working on my account, which is great. Now I'll have all this shit done. You know, but still, it's just one of those things. It's like, you know, you wonder why new players aren't getting into your game. Well, because you've added all this extra shit that people have to go all these leaps and hurdles that people have to go through in order to get some of the best gear, which is great. Does it feel rewarding? No, it does not feel rewarding to have to do 30 quests that you don't enjoy doing in order to get 1 ring. To spend 15 times dying at one boss to get this igneous stone, to get this thing, when in reality, and then killing it and finding out, oh, I can't actually get that drop unless I do it from start to finish, which you never mention anywhere at all on the actual game itself. You have to go off-site to find this shit out. I thought it was a bug. Like, it doesn't tell you that in game, right? Nowhere does it tell you these things. You know, it's the same thing with, like, you know, anything you need. The monolith, right? The fucking monolith. Okay? When I was so confused, alright? I had 103 archaeology, right? Before I realized, in order to get my associate's degree I had to get my associate degree in archaeology or whatever in order to get more monolith points or something, so I could get more relics in there. But the game doesn't really explain it too much, you know what I mean? And if it does, it explains it in such a way that I didn't even fucking know for 103 levels. Right? And now guess what? And I'm lucky that I had pretty much all the relics I needed. Where is this fucking thing at? I'm lucky that I had all the relics I needed in order to get that. Because in order to get it, you need to have completed excavated 250 relics and restored them. Now let's look at the next rank, right? The next rank's Professor. Okay, collectors assemble. 20 unique collections. Okay, that's fine because I did 5, so I know how to do that. What's this? 500? 500 artifacts, Jagex? You know how long that's going to take me? Like 2 or 3 years. You know why? Because I don't play this game a lot. And in those 2 or 3 years, they're going to add a bunch of new shit. It's ridiculous, Jagex. You wonder why no one plays this shit and why the game is so fucking dead and the players wonder why. Why is there all these MTXs? Because your player base is consists of 40,000 active players on a week-to-week basis. There's probably 40k people, at most 60k people, individuals that log on throughout the week and play. You probably have 20k people online right now, if that. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. You know, I'm sick of this shit, man. This is why I don't play. This is why I spent 14 years, wait a minute, how many years? Almost 10 years now playing old school RuneScape. And they're getting bad too. Your entire company is a shit show right now, man. It's frustrating as a returning player to RuneScape 3, coming back and seeing that I can't just hop in on the action, right? I have to go through step 1, step 2, step 3, step 500 in order to do some of the endgame bosses relatively easy. And even then, I'm still dying on Raziel. I'm still dying on that fucking boss. As a returning player who was more of a fan of pre-EOC, it's nice that you gave me a Revolution bar. I appreciate that, right? Without that Revolution bar, I would not be playing your game at all. But it is annoying to me that as a veteran, I cannot come in and just jump in and do some of the in-game shit. It took me forever to figure out how to get the good invention perks for my gear, right? Good invention perks for my gear. And it cost me hundreds of millions of gold. Most new players aren't going to be able to figure this out. You have too much shit going on here in RuneScape 3. You need to get your shit together because this is annoying. I've been rambling on now for about 14 minutes, so I'll sign off and say, get your shit together, Jagex. It's not fun. And for any of these RuneScape 3 players that come in here, oh, well, it's easy. You just gotta... How long have you been playing for, bro? I work, I have kids, I have my whole life going on. I'm not dedicating 40, 50, 60 hours a week to playing your fucking game to be able to not use a Revolution bar, to be able to clear Shadow Reef with no issues whatsoever. I'm not gonna do it. And that's why people like me are not playing your fucking game. Get your shit together, Jagex. Peace.